Okay, so as I mentioned, my name is Josephine Ionquay, and I work as the Equity and Inclusion Officer for the City of Hayward. I want to welcome you all to our third town hall for the Russell City Reparative Justice Project. I'll tell you a bit more about the purpose of these town halls and our goals for tonight in just a moment. First, I would like to give you a run of the show, and from there, we will introduce our staff team. So we'll start with this welcome, some remarks about the logistics for tonight, and then the project background. We'll do an introduction poll. So in a minute, the staff will introduce themselves. This poll is for you to introduce yourself, so we have a sense of who's in the room. That poll is also used to enter you into a raffle for gift cards for a few lucky winners. We have two topics tonight. So with each of these town halls, we're discussing two proposals, which batch a series of ideas. So tonight's focus is first on scholarships and academic grants. The second is on pipeline and or pathway projects or programs. So we'll have about 50 to 60 minutes for each topic, and we'll start with a series of silent polls before we go into public comment. I'll go over logistics for public comment in a moment, but there will be a limit of up to 2 public comments per topic. So that's up to 4 comments total for tonight's meeting to give your input in addition to written feedback. After we've had some discussion on your thoughts around these two proposals, we will close out with a poll to help rank potential beneficiaries. So up next, I would like to pause so you know who's in the room from the City of Hayward. I want to start by passing the mic to Regina.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Regina Youngblood, and I'm one of 2 assistant city managers with the City of Hayward. Happy to be here supporting your efforts tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina. And again, my name is Josephine Ionquaya, and I work as the Equity and Inclusion Officer.
Hi everyone, my name is Geraldine and I am tonight's IT support. So if you have any tech issues, please do let us know and we'll be happy to assist.
Hi everyone, my name is Rachel Quintilla and I'm a sustainability technician. Thank you all for joining us tonight.
Hi everybody, I'm Kim Colthurst. I'm a community programs specialist. Happy to be here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Luisa Carrera, and I am the Spanish interpreter.
Lovely. Thank you all so much. And I really appreciate you all for being here. It is definitely something that requires collaboration and support across the systems. And I think, as we'll see and continuing the conversations, a lot of investment needed for anything that comes out of this project. So I really appreciate you all for being here. And we'll continue with the background information. Okay, so this information may be a little repetitive for those who have been at past town halls or who have been involved in past workshops with city council. So thank you for bearing with us if it is repetitive. Wanted to give some background on the origin of this project and where we are today. So back in 2021, the Hayward City Council voted unanimously to do two things, both apologize for its role in promoting systemic racism, specifically as it relates to Black, Latinx, Indigenous, and other racialized communities. They also, following this, had a call to work specifically with former residents of Russell City and descendants of Russell City. So that happened about 2 months following in January 2022, where the charge was to really understand what does it mean to repair harm. In this case, speaking specifically to the Russell City redevelopment project that took place in the 60s. So that call to action for staff was to work with survivors and descendants regardless of race, so people of all racial ethnic backgrounds, to determine what appropriate restitution looks like through a community-led process. So there was about maybe almost 2 years of various forms of outreach, especially to better understand the community of former residents and descendants. There was a steering committee created where there were a total of 15 members involved who were really helping to be force multipliers and to help guide a process to get to a March workshop that occurred earlier this year. So in that March work session, that was where a series of draft recommendations were brought forward by the steering committee for city council consideration. As an outcome of that March 26th meeting, there was some direction from city council for staff So first was to narrow down the list of proposed recommendations. There were both a list of 26 recommendations that were created with support from a consultant, in addition to about 6 addendums from individual steering committee members. So there was a variety of feedback, and council felt it would be helpful to have a more narrowed down list, especially since some appeared to be duplicative or overlapping with the same ideas. And then the second piece of feedback primarily was to work with a larger kind of group of folks, because there had been a lot of time with the guidance of the steering committee. There was interest in getting a broader set of feedback prior to city council making a decision. And with the proposals that we're developing, there's a desire to see those in a scalable layout, meaning that there might be multiple options. So for example, doing a program for 100 people versus 200 versus 500, or having something that would be accessible to former residents and descendants that changes the scale and thus the resources needed. So there's some information that City Council is looking for to better understand what the community wants. So the 26 recommendations were narrowed down to 10 topics by staff here, primarily myself. So that involved looking at all the feedback from steering committee members. That involved also looking at feedback from city council as well. And it involved basically trying to see from a ranking survey and then various community input surveys what priorities were. So our goal with this town hall series even was to really start with what was identified as some of the highest priorities for conversation, and then go into other important recommendations that were maybe not as universally prioritized. So that's where we are now. That's how the 10 topics came to be. So in a little bit, I'll give you some background as to what specific recommendations led to the topics tonight, which are the academic grants and scholarships, as well as pathway and pipeline programs. So the implementation proposals that are going to be going to council, which are the final documents to consider before they make a determination, those are primarily going to be based on these town halls, as well as a public comment period to follow. So what that means is all the feedback to date, including recommendations that were developed with support of a consultant, as well as past feedback that's not forgotten. But there's a desire from both the steering committee and from our elected officials to better understand what specifically is being proposed. So this is an opportunity to really help us refine what we want to reflect back from a community-led perspective. And I'll talk a bit about the proposal layout in just a moment, but we are looking specifically for sections of the proposal that will describe what is being proposed and for how long and for whom. So following each implementation proposal being developed, we'll have about 20 days for people to give public comment. I do want to thank you all for your patience in the first wave of public comment. It took a bit longer than anticipated. So you'll notice that the 16-day period is now 20 days. So we're very committed to making sure you have ample time to give your feedback and that we can accurately evaluate what you're saying and prioritize what goes to council for consideration. So like I mentioned, the goals tonight are really to hear from you. So we'll give some background. We do want to reflect back what we've heard so far, because we know many community members have really given a lot of time and energy and effort into this work. So we thank you for your persistence, and we thank you for being willing to give advice and your expertise. We will be using what we call a qualitative data analysis, meaning we're looking at what people say, how frequently they say it, and then in what context to establish priorities. So that is partly based on how often different topics or themes are said, either in writing or verbally. That will help us to group some of the themes. So again, your feedback is going to be analyzed specifically to identify priorities. We know that with so many different community members, there may not be a universal consensus on what people want. There may also be several different ideas of how to implement the same theme. So our hope in hearing from you all and hearing from as many voices as possible is that there will be opportunities to really voice what you feel is a priority and compare that with other community feedback. So your feedback includes things that you say. So we'll have public comment where you can speak again up to 4 times tonight, up to 8 minutes to give your feedback. We also will have a series of polls. I'll talk more about that in a moment, but all the written feedback is really important. So everyone will have a chance to silently reflect before we have the open discussion. And then in the chat, if there's additional feedback, that will be considered. If you have an email after the fact, that can also be considered. So tonight, like I mentioned, there are two proposals being discussed. The first being scholarships and academic grants. The second being pipeline programs and pathway programs. I'll explain more what that means in a second. And also, we have, so one of my colleagues, Kim Coulthers, has a really extensive background in pipeline programs and workforce development. So if there are more questions, we're happy to answer that for the starting the conversation. But again, tonight is really about hearing from you. So for the most part, we want to reserve the time to hear from the public. So we'll talk about the what and the why. That's a portion of our proposal that basically describes what are we suggesting to council and why do you think is a relevant reparative action or program. The how really speaks to specific goals. So thinking about the big picture, what are the specific steps to make it happen? And then the who will speak to the eligibility criteria, which we'll get into. That just speaks to, if these proposals are approved, which nothing has been approved yet. But if they are, who do you think should be prioritized for the proposed benefit? And so, thank you. I see some folks are sharing different questions in the chat. We'll try to get to that towards the end of the background information before we go into the introductory poll. So please hold tight and we'll share more about, I think, some questions on looking at the history of the project. So this is an example of the proposal templates that will go to council. This basically outlines what I just described, the what and the why, the how, the who. These questions are noted on a document that was emailed out. So you can use them as a guiding point to think about your feedback. We'll also have slides that have this information posted. But essentially, this kind of breaks down our presentation of the ideas and may guide you on your feedback. So for example, when we think about eligibility criteria, a few questions might be like, is it one group or is it multiple groups? Is there a main group and a secondary group? When you think about descriptions of what is being proposed, is it a one-time action? Is it ongoing? The more specific details we have, the better we can reflect back what has been identified as community priorities. And I know there have been questions for those who might oppose a particular action. That too is being analyzed, so you're welcome to share your feedback. Just for transparency, what gets proposed to council within the context of the proposal will primarily be supporting comments. The bigger narrative of all the feedback we got to date, including roughly what proportion of folks had different themes, such as opposition, that will be reflected elsewhere. But you are welcome to share your thoughts throughout this, and the final document that is posted will be for those who support a given action, what they want to see. Okay, just a few logistics before we get to the first topic and maybe some of the questions. We do encourage one person per device for the best experience. In a moment, we will be launching an introductory poll, and those responses are used to enter your name into a raffle if you are open to that. But if we have multiple people on one device, only one person can be entered into the raffle. Like I mentioned earlier, before each discussion area, there will be silent polls before the public comments. So what that does is establishes some time for everyone to share comments, and then the additional time for discussion is for whoever is willing to speak or interested in speaking. You'll be able to raise your hand and speak during public comment. Right now, you do not have mic access, but that will be changed when we get to the speaking portion. And you can also use the chat to communicate with staff throughout the meeting, which some folks are already doing. Okay, so before we go into the poll, I just want to pause for a second. I may bring up my colleague Regina to help with some of the questions just to see what has come up so far. So I think it looks like there's a question around, will staff be analyzing the qualitative data or a third party? Currently, the plan is for staff. There are generally across the city kind of limited resources, so we are trying to be efficient. So there's a staff team of both the Racial Equity Division, which consists of myself, Regina Youngblood, our assistant city manager, and several staff analysts from several different departments who will be looking through all the feedback. And the way our process involves multiple eyes. So there will be a series of eyes on the same data to make sure we have the context correct. And then Regina, do you mind, do you want to speak to the question around past meetings for those who might be interested in um, looking at recordings that are not currently available?
Absolutely. Okay, there's several listed here. I'm seeing the question now. Sorry about that. Um, I would have to go back and check, but I think it's very possible to make those videos available wherever
Thank you so
you
much.
exist. Yes.
Thank you so much, Regina. And I think there's a question about different staff. Just as an FYI, we have a workforce of 1,000. We have one staff assigned to racial equity. So you will see people from multiple divisions because it requires more staff time to host these meetings. Okay, so now we're going to get into an introductory poll. This will be an opportunity to understand who's in the room. So in a second, Geraldine will launch a poll. We'll ask you to complete 3 questions. First, we'll ask which group represents you. You can select multiple. So if you're both a former resident and a descendant, you can check both. If you're both a descendant and a City of Hayward staff person, you can select both. We would love to know how many people are viewing this event with you. We understand that many people watch these events as a group or a family. This gives us a better assessment of our total input for our follow-up reporting. And then we'll ask you, what language are you listening with today on Zoom? So we're gonna go ahead and launch the first poll. We'll ask that you take about maybe 2 or 3 minutes to complete that. Thank you. Okay, we have about 89% of folks responding, so we'll give it about maybe 30 more seconds before we share the results. And I see Louise Maria Michael Lopez has a hand raised. We're not taking comments at this time. If you have a tech issue, if you could let us know in the chat, that'll be great. We'll have someone from our team reach out to you. Okay, it looks like we have about 18 of the 19 attendees completed the poll. So we'll go ahead and close out the poll to share what we're seeing for who's in the room. So if you want to scroll on your device, you can see it's like all the attendees are currently listening in English. When we think about the groups of folks, there's a mix with 41% of folks identifying as descendants, 35% identifying as former residents, and 41% identifying as Hayward residents. And for devices, it looks like most people are on their own device, with a couple people having a larger group joining. So thank you all for being here. I just want to keep us on time. But again, for the person with their hand raised, if you have any tech issues and are not able to hear us, please check the chat. We have someone coordinating with you now. Okay, so I want to continue with our slides. All right, so the first proposal we'll be discussing is scholarships and academic grants. I'll first review the feedback that came from the list of 26 recommendations. So the first says free education for descendants. This specifically talks about free education, scholarships, and living stipends for academic pursuits. So it's a bit of a broader flexibility in the recommendation. The second is educational scholarships and support. So thinking specifically about scholarships, and we'll explain what that means in a second, as well as living stipends for academic pursuits. So 2 approaches, one being sort of unconditional free education, another being scholarships. And then the third is just slightly related. It talks to establishing a community fund that could be used to administer a series of fiscal responsibilities for community programs. So scholarships could be one of those, other types of programs could be another, but there was some early interest in looking at community administered programs. And then additionally, there were a few recommendations from steering committee members through addendum. So these included recommendations for the City of Hayward to work in collaboration with Russell City family members to shape plans and partnerships with other entities such as the County of Alameda and the State of California, with the ultimate goal of creating both career and educational funding opportunities. So you'll see that this comes up both for this recommendation or proposal and the next one to follow. There's also recommendations to look at establishing a Russell City Office of Education and Social Services, which could offer free tuition for descendants, starting with K through 12, as well as higher education. And then finally, there was a recommendation to support and improve tuition reimbursement retroactively. So looking back all the way to 1963 and beyond to former residents and descendants who have completed school already, but could qualify for a new benefit. And this recommendation spoke not only to like a bachelor's degree kind of university, but also community colleges and trade and technical schools. So again, before we go into the discussion, this is another preview of the template. These questions will be available. We can put in the chat maybe a link to the what to expect document. You'll see that already. You can look at it again if you want to follow along, or you can also look at the notes on the screen when we get to public comment. So again, just some things to consider as we go into the discussion, specifically thinking about scholarships and academic grants. So in the past, we've outside of the steering committee and the specific recommendations brought to council in March, there have been community discussions at public meetings, including one in February where someone raised, we should be including trade schools. So making sure that any kind of academic resource is available for a variety of professional development types. And then again, as I mentioned, it was in one of the addendums as well, but there was some interest in looking at retrospective fiscal support with the expectation that people that have already graduated would not be able to benefit from something newer if it's only looking forward. So there's some base definitions for the team. So scholarships are basically financial awards that are designed to help students pay for college. They do not have to be repaid. Scholarships can be administered in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's a one-time check to the recipient or the student. Other times it is sent directly to an academic university and administered that way. And some are ongoing as well. So there are a lot of different options when you think about what happens in the industry. However, what we propose for City Council is really based on what you share. So again, we're going to ask that you are as specific as possible to really inform what you want to see. So now we're about to get into our second poll. This poll is basically going to help us start to think about who could be eligible before we go into conversations around the specifics of what you want to see proposed. So there'll be two options. First, you can say in 2 words or less, one group that you think should be eligible. And if you have a second group, you can add that in the second box. So we'll give you a couple of minutes to do the eligibility poll that we will launch now. Thank you. Looks like our responses have stopped trickling in, so I'm going to end the poll. And thank you to the 17 folks who shared their feedback. So I'll just share I'll stop sharing. We'll actually, so for these, we'll sort through these and combine them before we do a ranking survey at the end of the meeting. So what we'll do is for both proposals, give people an opportunity to prioritize what the eligible beneficiaries should be. Okay, so we're gonna continue. Awesome, so my screen is up. Okay, so again, we're gonna be moving into public comment now. Again, for your consideration, these are questions. They will be shared throughout the slides as well. Prior to public comment, before we start, we're gonna do one more poll. We'll do this with, I'm sorry, it looks like we might have had an issue. Possibly, I think if there were any people who were not able to send their feedback for eligible beneficiaries, if you could please put that in the chat, we'll be able to record your answers there. So you should have the chat availability to message the panelists and the host, and we'll add that. So please take some time to do that if you haven't already. We are going to move to a second poll at this time. So this will be a bit longer. Typically it's taken people between 10 to 12 minutes, depending on how fast they type and how much time they need to think through it. But this will be a chance for you to give specific details on the description, on the objectives, and also on any other kind of context that you think would be helpful to frame why this should be proposed or how it should be proposed. So these are just a few questions for you to consider. When you go into the poll, please be sure to scroll down to the bottom to ask all your or to add all your input. So we're going to launch a poll again. This has taken about 10 minutes. So if you do finish early, feel free to put your any additional thoughts in the chat. Otherwise, you can take a quick break. We're going to give it at least 10 minutes, and I will let you know when we are close to closing the poll. Thank you. And as you're working on the poll response, we know there was actually a typo in the last one. So property restoration was listed instead of the accurate proposal type. We're going to see if we can get that survey relaunched, just depending on how long this poll takes. So please just take this time to again speak specifically to scholarships and academic grants for description. And if we can relaunch the eligibility poll, we'll do that in a few minutes. Thank you. Quick time check. We have a few more minutes allocated for this. About 11 of the 22 attendees have responded. So if you're among the second group of 11 who want to make a comment on the description for scholarships or academic grants, please try to do so in the next 2 or 3 minutes before we close the poll. Thank you. And Susan, we see you have a hand raised. We'll try to coordinate with you in the chat if available. If you're having any issues with the poll, let us know in the chat, and we can coordinate to get your answers via chat and add them to the survey responses later. Thank you. Okay, the poll will be closing in about 60 seconds. So if you have any information that you have not submitted, please try to finish up your thoughts. If you need more time, we'll put the email address in the chat. So take about 1 more minute. And I think for the people receiving an error message, please refer to the chat. We're trying to problem solve for you right now. So take about 1 more minute and we'll close the poll. Okay. Okay, it looks like we have most of the responses. We have 17 out of 22, so about 77% of folks responded. I know there was at least one person with a tech issue, and we'll be coordinating with you in the chat. So please send us your response via chat. And if anyone else has tech issues, feel free to chat us. So we are going to close out this poll. And my apologies, there was an issue with the last poll. It said property restoration instead of scholarships. We are going to relaunch that poll. So again, just to give context, as a quick reminder, this is a poll asking about who should be eligible for scholarships. So there will be 2 options. Just scroll back for you. The first question is, in 2 words or less, who should be eligible? And then if you do have a second group, there's an optional second question with, adding who that second group is. So because there was some confusion, we are going to ask you to resubmit your answers. So even if you've already put your feedback, please bear with us and resubmit it so we have an accurate summary of the feedback for all the attendees today. So we're going to go ahead and launch the poll again. So this is, again, eligibility for scholarships and academic grants. We'll try to give you about maybe 3 minutes. So if you can aim to do that in 3 minutes, that would be great. So we can start our public comment. Thank you. And you should be seeing that survey in just a moment. Give us just a second. Sorry, it's a little bit of a tech issue. We'll have the survey in just a moment. But again, as you're waiting, if you can think about your answers. So this is, again, who you believe should be eligible. Okay, great. Looks like it's live right now. Okay, it looks like we have the majority of folks who would like to answer have completed the poll. So we'll go ahead and end the poll now. Thank you again for your feedback and for bearing with us as we did that survey a second time. It's really important that we're accurately capturing what is said and who is saying it, so that when we reflect back the feedback, we can truly speak to the number of people supporting various actions. Okay, so now we are going to get back to public comment. Okay, so you all should be able to see my screen now. So you just did the eligibility poll for scholarships and grants. We also did a poll to help describe overall, descriptions and objectives for that proposal. So what we're going to move to now is the public comment period. I want to bring up my colleague Kim to talk about a bit of the logistics, just as a friendly reminder for how public comment will work and how you can have your voice heard. Again, you're welcome to just do written feedback if you like, but if you would like to speak, this is the time. Thank you, Kim.
Hi, thank you, Josephine. Okay, so in terms of commenting on proposals or making proposals in particular, I think what we're looking for today is if you would like to make a live public comment on Zoom, that is an option. You will also be able to make comments in the chat. So if you feel more comfortable putting comments in the chat, feel free to put those in there. But if you would like to be contribute live, you can make a maximum of 2 comments for proposals, and that's 4 times total, 2 per proposal, and then you have a limit of 2 minutes for each comment. And then we'll be keeping a track. There's a timer that will run during your comment period, so you'll know how much time you have left. And if you are on your phone and you would like to, when it's time to speak, when it's your turn, you'll press star 6 to unmute. But before that, to raise your hand to be called on for a comment or a proposal, you'll press star 9 to raise your hand. And again, public comment is the focus, which is different than question and answer. And hopefully everybody can see that you have a little raise your hand. Folks who haven't used it yet, you have a raise your hand button on the bottom of your screen. It might be in slightly different places depending on what kind of device you're on. So again, 2 minutes for folks who would like to comment. And Josephine, are we ready for people to raise their hands?
Yes, ma'am, we're ready to go.
All right, great. So the first subject is we're still on scholarships and academic grants. So if folks would like to make proposals, again, we're what, how, why, and who. So how would you describe the action, project, or service being proposed? What do you want to see around scholarships and academic grants? How would it happen? Is it a one-time action, ongoing? If it's ongoing, for how long? How should eligibility be verified? And why? Why is it helpful or justified? And then again, like we've been discussing, who should be eligible for the proposed benefit? So, let's see. Oh, great. Sorry, just looking at the chat for a moment there. Anybody like to raise their hand and share an idea? All right. Looks like first up we have Ro Aguilar. What I'm gonna do, Ro, is give you permission to talk, and then you'll unmute yourself.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Thank you.
I apologize. I started a little bit late, but my general advocacy is for free college for low income and in public colleges, and on a sliding scale, maybe for low income, no no tuition, and then as people get more economically up the ladder, they would pay a share. Is it over?
No, you still have quite a while. You have over a minute.
And I think this should be an ongoing thing in our schools. And I think that the residents of Russell City, the descendants of Russell City, should definitely have free college. And well, let's see, I would like this to be ongoing. And I'm not sure how eligibility for Russell City would be verified. I think there would have to be some sort of, paper trail or something, but if they were low income, they would qualify for the 0 to whatever the sliding scale is. We need to have programs that move people into the middle class, and that's the ultimate goal, the ultimate benefit of providing free or low-cost college. And if it's low cost, we could also have scholarships and grants to help those folks. That's how I got through college. I went to when I went to college, there was no tuition, but and so I'm forever grateful for that. But now I think we have to do it for the lower income youth. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Any other participants who would like to speak? Looks like I see a second hand. Marion Johnson, let me get you ready to speak. All right, Ms. Johnson, we're ready for you.
Thank you so much. What would you describe as the action? The action would be scholarships and grants, a full ride for residents and the families of residents. How is it a one-time action? For as long as Hayward is in possession of Russell City, they should continue to provide this academic enhancement for the residents and the families of the residents of Russell City. Why is it helpful or justified? Because the land was taken, and who should be eligible for the proposed benefits? It said that. To verify that, I believe there should be government records, things in that nature, birth certificates, schools. And I think they have a list of people already, and they should continue to build that list to find out who those families are who qualify. It shouldn't matter what their income is. If they're a member of that particular people, then they should be eligible to receive all the services that are provided. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Any other folks, participants who would like to? Oh, wonderful. I see 2 new names. It looked like you both popped up at the same time, so I'll just go in whoever is in order on my screen. Michael Johnson, we are ready for you.
Hello? You hear
We
me?
can hear you, yes.
Okay, one of the things about being able to verify the descendants and stuff, right? I said like birth certificates, and then I believe you can do DNA. I mean, DNA is like, that's the science right there. So that we have that, those are the ones those are 2 that I know of that you can do. I mean, they may have something else, but that's what I have. I'm good now.
Wonderful, thank you. And sorry, Mike, I need to get closer. My screen's not big enough. Connie Lorenzo Jordan, Let me get you ready to talk. Okay, when you're ready. Oh, Connie, remember to unmute.
Okay, I read about all the proposals, and the thing that has struck me is that some families left before this time parameter that you have. What is it, 1960 to 67? If I read it correctly. And the redevelopment push was going on in well before that. Families left. They didn't live there, but they still paid their taxes on abandoned homes and waited for everything to hash out with redevelopment. So where does that leave these families that left? That's my question. How are they eligible?
Thank you.
I think that's a whole group that's been overlooked here.
Wonderful. You have a little more time if you want to add anything.
Basically, no. You know, we're all in this together. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next, I have Claire Dugan. Let me get you ready to talk. All right, when you're ready, go ahead and unmute.
Okay. So I want to remind people on this meeting that the city of Hayward did not own the land that Russell City was on. The city of Hayward did not remove anybody through eminent domain from Russell City. That was all done by Alameda County. I do not believe that any current Hayward resident should be paying for any of these projects, since Alameda County was 100% responsible because they owned the land that Russell City was on and had owned it for many generations. They were the ones who sold it, and they were the ones who used eminent domain to remove people from their homes. So I think it's a travesty, and frankly, not just that the residents from Hayward, currently or otherwise, should pay for any of these programs. This should all land at the County of Alameda's feet. They were completely responsible for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? If you are able, I don't seem to be able to lower your hand for you. Connie and Claire, if you don't mind lowering your hand, that would be lovely. Thank you. I don't know why I'm not able to. Wonderful. Thank you. Unless you want to speak again. You can speak twice, by the way. If anybody spoke already and they haven't spoken yet, there's another chance. Oh, great. Connie. Wonderful. Let me give you. All right. You are able to speak, Connie.
My understanding is the Santucci Hog Ranch was not part of Russell City redevelopment. That's why they were not, they were the last to receive any money, is my understanding, and they were not, they sold out, I believe, to another developer. I don't believe that that somebody needs to recheck that they were part of the Russell City confiscation.
Thank you. All right. We'll maybe pause for a moment in case there are any folks who aren't quite ready. Also, just a quick reminder that you can, if you have comments for this section on scholarships and academic grants, you can also put it in the chat. And you can also email the email that is in the chat if you need a little time sometimes I need a little time to think about ideas, and so that's an option. That email is always available to you.
I think Marion has a hand up. Kim?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Thank you very much, Josephine. All right, Marianne. Okay, when you're ready, unmute.
Thank you so much. I didn't mention that the types of scholarships should be, I don't, maybe I did, but in case I didn't, universities, junior colleges, trade schools, and I hope trade schools include such things as like culinary school or cosmetology school that would benefit from them being provided grants to go to those institutions. I think that's it. And Hayward was unincorporated. They weren't owned by Alameda County until eminent domain came about. What else? And Alameda County has provided an apology that it included the language about the Santucci Hog Farm. So you might want to look there as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any final comments? Ideas? All right, Josephine, I think we might be through this first round.
All right, thank you so much, Kim. I appreciate that. And thank you to everyone for sharing your public comments. Again, we encourage you to continue to do this, whether it be in writing or with the polls. We do take all the feedback very seriously. So we appreciate you for taking some time. And we will move on to the second proposal of the evening. So again, switching gears. This is now different topic, but the same routine. Let me make sure can you all see my screen for proposal 6? Let me just reshare and make sure we have it on the screen. And then okay, lovely. Okay, looks like the screen was up. I'll put it back up. Okay, so this next one deals with what is called pipeline and pathway programs. Thank you so much, Kim, for the input, and I'll share some of what the background kind of definitions are and what that means when we say a pipeline program or a pathway program. First, I will start with, again, what we've heard so far, because we understand that members of the public have been giving feedback and we hear you. So again, thinking back to the work with the steering committee and the consultant, there was a list of 26 recommendations. So one of them, again, is the same one that you saw in the previous proposal, because the language kind of conflated two ideas, but essentially looking at employment and economic opportunity. So in the context of pathway programs, the very last sentence you'll see is that there was recommendations specifically for businesses in the industrial park. So businesses that in modern times are benefiting from the removal and destruction of Russell City, that they could be opportunities for job training or even just overall hiring. So thinking about how descendants in particular might benefit from the current existence of industrial programs was one of the ideas that came to mind as it relates to pipeline and pathway programs, which are essentially career development, career exposure, and career access programs that have an emphasis on building your skills to be eligible for other jobs. There were also, again, addendums submitted by steering committee members where there was input for the same kind of topic. So the first one you'll see is a similar comment from last time. This again speaks to City of Hayward creating plans with community input. So that theme of community-centered input continued. But for the context of this proposal, it speaks more to career programs, career opportunities. And there was a specific recommendation for City of Hayward to be working with other government entities, so the state and the county that we're in, Alameda County. Additionally, like I mentioned before, this recommendation spoke to essentially looking at, well, this is actually slightly different. So AB 3121 was referenced to think about how career technical education can be expanded. So thinking about combining academic and other types of occupational training for students as a bigger theme. And there were, like it was shared in the past session, a lot of different ideas, whether it be a four-year university or a very specific trade that people find important or appealing. So that's just a little bit of what we heard so far. This is just to help you frame some understanding of what you might consider. You can propose whatever you like as we get into the comments. So I will kind of go over some background information around these programs just to distinguish what they mean. Again, the titles we have right now, pipeline, pathway, that can be changed. That's just based on what we know so far. The final proposals that go to council will be refined based on community feedback. So pipeline and pathway programs are similar in that they're building skills to support workforce, promotions, development, but they are different concepts. So that's going to share a little bit of the industry language. Typically, I would say from the feedback we've received to date, they seem to lean more towards pathway programs. So pathway programs combine education, training, exposure, services to help individual people either enter into a specific occupation or advance within an occupation. So that's something that might be more amenable to people like that are not quite in their career, or even for folks that are looking for career changes. So this could include things like an apprenticeship program that trains on a specific skill type, or internship programs. There also are career pipeline programs. So those are different types. Of the short difference is that pipeline programs tend to focus a lot more on either the existing workforce of a company or of a system, or a pipeline from a specific group. So for example, maybe you want to be a dental assistant and there's a pipeline to a local school where folks are being trained on that. Or typically within organizations like City of Hayward, for example, it might focus on more of the entry level, lower level positions, which doesn't necessarily mean someone's newer in their career. It could just be where they ended up work-wise. And programs within organizations try to focus on advancing skills for promotional opportunities or higher paying jobs. So as you can imagine, if we're thinking of the typical industry standard of what a pipeline program is, unless people are already working at the City of Hayward or at a specific university where there's a partnership or a program, it may not, the broad term may not fit what you all want. So this is the opportunity to really clarify what is it when you think about pathway programs, on the job training, that concept of getting skills or getting exposure, getting access so that people can navigate their work careers. This is the opportunity to say what you do want to see. So just as a refresher before we start to get into some of the eligibility feedback and then going into the open description feedback, this is how the proposal will look. So just like we just did for scholarships and academic grants, we'll be getting input to inform 3 different sections. So feel free to share whatever you like. These are just some questions for consideration that you might think about. So now we are going to launch a poll to get some feedback. And this feedback is going to basically be used to get preliminary groups that could be eligible for whatever pathway or pipeline program recommendation comes of this town hall. So give us just a moment and we will launch the next poll. Okay, it should be live now. So we'll give you about maybe about 3 or 5 minutes to see how long it takes for people to respond. We have about let's see, about 23 attendees currently. So we want to give you all a chance to respond, and I will be giving a reminder when we get closer to 1 and 2 minutes. So take your time and fill out the poll, sorry. Thank you. Okay, so just want to give a 1-minute heads up. We will be closing the poll in 1 minute. So if you have not completed the poll so far, please do so. And actually, it looks like everyone has completed the poll. So with that, we will end the poll and continue the conversation. Okay, so thank you for that. We'll have just a couple more polls before the meeting closes. So now, just like last time, we'll take a few minutes to get your feedback on the description, the justification, and specific objectives for the proposal. So again, this is a great opportunity to really specify what's needed. As you probably can glean from the feedback to date, is that we have heard general community feedback about the concept of training people for jobs, giving access to jobs, thinking about maybe public-private partnerships with things like training programs, as well as scholarships and grants. But this is really an opportunity to be very specific about when you think about pathway and pipeline programs, again, considering some of these distinguishing factors where pipeline is typically more for, access to a group that might be interested in a specific occupation or within a workforce, and pathway being a bit broader when it comes to just different services and supports. What do you want to see? So we'll take about maybe 10 minutes, depending on how long it takes for people to write down their feedback, to think of these questions. So again, just some food for thought. What do you want to be proposed? What specific details would you recommend in describing it? And then the eligibility one you just spoke to in your last poll. And after we finish this, we will go into public comment. So we'll ask that if you are interested in public comment, just be prepared with your 2-minute remarks. Okay, you should see the eligibility poll in just a moment for pathway programs and pipeline programs. Sorry to interrupt. Just a very quick time check. We have about 66% of participants have completing this portion. So far, 14 of the 21 participants online. So we'll give you about maybe 5 more minutes because this is a longer question and we want to make sure we hear from everyone. So please try to complete your response in 5 minutes, and I'll come back in 4 minutes to give you a time check reminder before we close the poll. Thank you. Okay, the poll will be closing in 1 more minute. There are about 6 people who have not responded. So if you are interested in adding a response, please do so in the next minute. Thank you. Okay, I think we have the majority of the responses submitted, and if you're having any issues with the poll, feel free to send your response in the chat. So again, this will just be a general prompt. Share your thoughts on how you would describe the proposal. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and end the poll and then move on to the next part of the agenda. So I'm going to bring up my colleague Kim again, who will be facilitating public comment. So again, this is your time to give your verbal comments for any ideas you have for pathway programs, pipeway programs, or anything of the like. We really encourage your feedback, especially if you have ideas on what should be more specific. So I know, for example, there have been some questions about who's being considered, what kind of project will be warranted. This is an opportunity for you all to give us your recommendation. Kim, thank you so much.
Great. Thank you again. Just a quick refresher. You have 2 opportunities to comment, 2-minute time limit. If you're on the phone, *9 to raise your hand. Otherwise, you have a little raise your hand button on Zoom. And again, the public comment is the focus, which is different than questions and answers or community discussion. And I want us to be conscious of cross commenting as well. This is really about garnering ideas. So if you have a question, a comment on or an idea, more importantly, about pipelines and pathways programs, worrying less about the terminology, I think, because honestly, this is my background and we all get confused about the difference between pipelines and pathways. So I'd worry more about your ideas and what category they fall in. Go ahead and if you would like to share an idea, go ahead and raise your hand when you're ready. All right, Ro, I see you. When you're ready, unmute.
I just think it will be helpful if, when you're presenting this information and people say, why are they offering them job training and, pipelines and pathways? I think it's important to say why it is justified. And one of the reasons is the segregation of our communities. This was also a segregated community. And we have segregated communities in Hayward still, of low income, people of color, and they do not have the networks nor the contacts and opportunities that people in higher income communities have, so they can get ahead. So I think programs like this should have a priority of low income, and in this case, Russell City descendants first, and give them an opportunity to get give them the same opportunity that higher income and middle income communities have to learn about jobs, know someone who can help them get that job, know, from talking to people how to apply and what to do and what to say. So it's a whole cultural thing, and I think that's important to give that context when you're talking about helping people move up the income ladder. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aguilar. And we do see, thank you for everybody who's putting ideas in the chat. We see your comments. They're going to be noted, so thank you for that. Feel free, again, reminder, which reminds me to say, if you don't feel like you would like to speak publicly, please use the chat. Great. I see 2 other hands up. Donna Whitmore, let me get you ready to talk. All right, when you're ready, Miss Whitmore, go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, who is going to pay for all these programs? That really hasn't been discussed. And which brings it back to the point, if it's Hayward voters that are going to be paying for all this, I think it's pretty easy to prove that Hayward didn't own the land or handle the relocation. There's so many, I went back and looked at all the articles, like January 24th, 1962, out of the Daily Review, talks about the 1,850,000 I'm sorry, talked about Harold Davis and the 200 to 400 families that he's relocating to Oakland Tribune, February 5th, 1963. Talked about the $1.834 million that the board, Alameda County Board of Supervisors voted for buying out the 205 families, 13 churches, and 7 businesses. So if you expect Hayward to pay for this, I think it should go to the voters, and they should know who actually conducted this activity. Thank you.
Thank you. And next I have Marian Johnson. When you're ready, Ms. Johnson, go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I personally am a resident and a descendant, and I appreciate the citizens of Hayward for being in this space. But the more I come, the more I see the abusiveness of what they say, the inaccuracy, because I know from my family alone, we were not relocated. Harold, whatever Davis, did not relocate my family and my cousin's family and a few of our friends' family. We didn't get any help in relocation. And for you to tell us not to respond when they come in here and center themselves and again continue to abuse us, it's not a safe space. And if they can say what they say, I'm going to respond because I am still hurt behind what has happened. So you can't have it both ways. They can't get to say what they want to say, and then you tell us to shut up. That's it.
Thank you so much. Okay, I feel like Josephine, could we, I know, could we remind me what were the community agreements for the space around?
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. I think I actually did skip, turn my camera on, skip past that slide. So my apologies. That was something we would have shared at the beginning. Just briefly, this will be familiar for those who've been at other town halls, but we want to, and I think Marianne spoke to that a bit, some of this being mindful about what emotional labor comes with this work, and also harm from actions taken. So just to recap, I'm sorry about that, and we'll go to Kathy and Donna in a second. Zero tolerance for racism, hate, or disrespect. Understanding the emotional labor being asked of the community, in particular for those who've experienced the harm around this topic. Step up, step back. That is naturally happening, but we want to encourage you to share your voice if you would like to, because we cannot report on what we don't hear. It's fine if you do not want to do it verbally here. If it doesn't feel comfortable to do so here, the writing is just as good as a verbal comment. We do ask that you introduce yourself when making public comment, so my apologies for not noting this in advance. Have compassion, and then agree to being recorded because the meeting is being recorded. So thank you so much for that, Kim. I think I skipped past it at the beginning with bringing slides up and down.
Thank you. No, I want folks to feel safe, and I don't, this is a difficult situation. All right, so let's thank you so much, Josephine. Kathy Rodriguez, you are up next. When you're ready, go ahead and unmute.
Wow. Okay. So What I would like to see is that, okay, I'm Kathy Rodriguez. My family lived in Russell City. I lived in Russell City in the early 60s. And people who are speaking, it would be great to know if they were a resident or not, because there's some comments that are being made that are kind of out there. Concerning the people who have lived in Russell City or whose family members were affected in Russell City. Because it kind of would give everybody a sense of who they are and why they're saying what they're saying. And I would like to say, like, for the pipeline and pathway programs, I think that families should. So there was someone who was speaking about low income families and, the educational part, but I think that there should be a program that's available to all families who lived in Russell City and their descendants on life skills, dealing with personal issues within yourself, financial, how to budget, just different things that you would need to know to bring yourself up to a different level and keep moving and going forward. Because I was a welfare mom, and I went to college, I got a good job, I make really good money, and I teach those classes to kids, young adults, and kids who are in a correctional facility, and it's good for anybody across the board. And I also teach them for in the community as well. There's just things that people aren't taught in school, and I think that would really help the community, because sometimes you need to do research, you need to learn how the basic life skills, and even life skills and how to go from being a welfare mom to being a millionaire. Because that's where I'm at in my life. And it's so important for people who came from a poverty lifestyle. That's it.
Great. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Donna Whitmore. I wasn't sure if you were wanting to speak again, or if your hand just didn't go down from the first time. Let me unmute you for a moment here. Miss Whitmore, what did you want to speak again? Oh. Okay, maybe not. Thank you. All right, next speaker is Joe Smith. All right, Mr. Smith, when you're ready, go ahead and unmute.
Okay, thank you very much for letting me speak. First of all, my name is Joe Smith, and I am not, or never was, a resident of Russell City. I just own property in Hayward, and I think it's very admirable on what the city of Hayward is trying to do to make reparations, but feel that if reparations are being made for Russell City residents, then they should be made for many other people that were wronged or had their land taken away during the March of Progress, which is basically what has happened in Hayward, that Progress marched along and some people got their land taken away from them. The Indians had land taken away from them many, many years ago. And I realized that there are reparations being done for them as well. And that's why I think it's very admirable on what Hayward is trying to do. And I have tried to listen to what everybody says and take the polls, and really don't think that any reparations need to be done for pretty much anybody. If they want, why not do it for the Indians and for the cavemen and for people that happen to live in, the area many years ago, and don't think that, in the name of progress, that anything really needs to be done, and money does not need to be spent on projects such as this to make reparations for anybody that has stood in the way of progress. And I think that's kind of what this comes down to, is that a lot of the people that were in Russell City feel wronged, and many people were wronged in the name of progress when land was being acquired and developed in different areas.
Thank you. You're on time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Josephine, do we have time for more?
Oh, yes, we have plenty of time for more comments. So for those who have not spoken twice, feel free to take this time.
And I would
Thank you.
also like to really kind of focus us back to the idea of pipeline and pathways programs. So if there's anything that you would like to add to that, any ideas you have, that's what we're really looking for today.
And it looks like we have Marianne with a hand up.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. Here we go, Miss Johnson, when you're ready.
I won't take it the wrong way, but with pipelines and pathways, I think a blend of the both would cast a wider net, because we're all independently unique. So what might work for one may not work for someone else. So if there's a way we could blend something like that so that everyone can participate that wants to participate. And then there's the part of finding partnerships with corporations and organizations that can be the spaces where we are able to participate and learn and grow. Just like Kathy said, there are a lot of people that need some basic skills in terms of, bank accounts and simple stuff that's not being taught in the schools, that we could find in pathways and or pipelines. So if we could blend it, that would be great. That's it.
Great. Thank you so much. Any more ideas for pipeline and pathways programs? Again, chat is available to you, as well as the email. If you come up with any ideas after this program, this event tonight, so that's available to you. I think we might be exhausted the comments.
Okay, if we want to give maybe one more minute, if there's anyone else who wants to comment. If not, we can finish early. So we'll give you a second and then we'll move on if there are no more comments. I think you called it. I think we're good to go. So thank you so much, Kim, and thank you as well to the other staff supporting. So we'll now continue to move on. Thanks for all those who provided public comment. So now we're moving towards the last portion of our evening. So we may in fact finish before 8 o'clock tonight. I just had an announcement and then we'll talk about the path forward for these proposals and for the remaining proposals. So for those who visited or were participating last month, when we had a conversation around property restoration, it will be familiar to you that we are building a interactive map that shows current and modern day Russell City. So this is just a snapshot on the screen. These purple lines are the known parcels from Russell City. These are pulling from a lot of advice and feedback from the steering committee, as well as research from one of the consultants who came on the formative part of this work, as well as one of our colleagues here in the city of Hayward. So the map basically allows you to kind of draw with a tool called GIS, Infographic Systems, draw out the parcels. They're already drawn, but you can layer them on. So what you'll see from the aerial footage or the photo footage, that shows what the area that was Russell City looks like today. So the industrial buildings, it shows the new streets that have been recreated. And then you can also layer on older maps of Russell City and aerial footage of Russell City prior to the redevelopment. So this is something that was requested and recommended by community members. It will be going live in the coming weeks. So we just want to make sure that for those who may have either their names or family members' names included in this, that if you do not want to consent to being a part of this, if you do not want your name or information listed, there is a survey to opt out. So we'll put a link to the project portal in the chat. If you know you do not want information listed, please let us know. It generally will say the name of the property owner. It will give information on the type of document that we have. It will not share the documents that we have collected or that have been sent to us. So it might say tax document, eminent domain document, a deed. It gives you a sense of what kind of verification we have. And it's important to note that it is not fixed to one point in time. So there could be multiple owners, for example, if there were multiple sales within the time period that we have documents for. So if you are interested in opting out of that, please let us know. And otherwise, we will be sharing this information in the coming weeks. So it would be really great to know if you do not want to be included, and hopefully it's a helpful resource for you all as it gets launched. We do want to make this tool available in its prototype version prior to the November City Council meeting, which will be the first time we're back at City Council since November of this year. Okay, if there are any questions about the mapping tool, feel free to add them to the chat. Otherwise, I will close us out with some announcements. So public comment for these two proposals will begin in about 3 to 4 weeks. If it happens sooner, we will alert you. So what happens is everyone who signed up for a Russell City Reparative Justice Project update will get emails when public comment goes live. We also add all the attendees to those emails as well. That will be posted online. So again, you can visit the project portal page. There will be updates when you go into that portal at the very top. And there also are links where you can see full descriptions of the draft proposals before clicking a survey. The way public comment works is that when you enter the survey, you have a chance to read all the language if you like, or you can go right in, and for each section, you'll either first be kind of asked generally, do you support the specific recommendation or oppose that? If you do oppose, you have an opportunity to give your feedback and give the context, and that will be summarized there. For those who would like to give comments to specifically inform the eligibility criteria, the descriptions or the objectives, you'll be queued to more information where you can make recommendations for edits. So if your overall edit is nothing should be done, that's noted, but it will not be included in the portion that's trying to finalize what is being proposed, if that makes sense. And like I mentioned towards the beginning of the meeting, there will be a series of ways that we're sharing information with council, a staff report, as well as a presentation when we get to the city council meetings. So there will be opportunities to talk broadly about who we heard from, the overall sentiment. So for example, the rough proportion of folks out of the attendees who said, yes, they support this or not. We did something similar back in February when we were ranking the 26 recommendations. So just want to reiterate that public comment will be open. There's still more opportunity to weigh in. And the final opportunity for these two proposals, so academic grants and scholarships being one, pathway and or pipeline programs, whatever you call it, being the second, that will be with the public comment period. And you can again visit the project portal website to get more information on that. So our next town hall will be next week, same time, same place. You can use the same link. We will start promptly at 5:30. We are, as you can see, really trying to be as efficient as possible with your time. So today it looks like we're finishing closer to 7:30. It really depends on the amount of comments. So we will continue to hold the full 3-hour block to accommodate all the feedback and to reflect that. And we'll end early if we've heard from everyone in enough detail. So next week, we'll be discussing business grants and economic development priority as the first of the 2 proposals. And the second is home buyers assistance. So we'll be doing the same run of show where we share what we've heard so far, and you all have a chance to give feedback. For those who have been at all 3 town halls, you will notice that as we sort of go down the list, the higher priority items that have been identified had a lot more detail and feedback on the front end from public input to date. As we get to the remaining 4 proposals, there is a bit more of a broad range of specificity. So there are opportunities to further clarify if this is a recommendation that should come out of a reparative justice project, if it's a recommendation that may duplicate a service that exists, or if it needs to be refined a bit to better describe what community members are recommending. So I really encourage you to tell your colleagues, friends, family, anyone that you think might be interested in weighing in. They're welcome to join us at the next town hall. They can also sign up for alerts on the website using the links that we shared in the chat. And just to go over our overall schedule, so here you'll see the plan from the past month and a half or so. So we've completed the first 2 town halls with the first 4 proposals. All 4 of those proposals have public comment live now. That went live this week and will be up for a few more weeks. So the last day will be Tuesday, September the 17th. So on Tuesday, September the 17th at 11:59 p.m., public comment for basic income, fair compensation, property restoration, and also a displacee preference within the affordable housing ordinance will all close. So if you were not able to attend the town hall or want to give additional feedback, please feel free to review the draft proposals and give your feedback now. We've had about, I think, between 15 to 22 people for various proposals as of this morning. And then just a foreshadow, I mentioned what we'll be discussing next week, but our final town hall will be about a month from about a month from now. That'll be on September 25th, so a little bit later. That gives us time to really analyze the feedback from the first 8 proposals and begin to prepare to think about how we can summarize information and present it to City Council. So the very last town hall will deal with heritage preservation. So those are things like working with local schools for Russell City specific curricula within courses like ethnic studies. That could involve public art, that could involve other recommendations that were really about preserving the culture of Russell City and raising awareness about Russell City. And then the final proposal is another batched set of ideas. So it's an idea for both a community center and a series of community benefit programs, whether they be environmental justice, health, or otherwise. So there's a lot of opportunity to refine these ideas. No pressure to start thinking about it now, but if you have thoughts or want to kind of flag your ideas to the side, that's what's coming up next. But for now, we're again asking for feedback via public comment if you do have more comments, and participation in next week's town hall. And then as you'll see at the bottom of this slide, we are still on track to go to City Council at the end of this calendar year. So the November 19th meeting will be the meeting where we share all the proposals, answer any questions, and then get any kind of follow-up direction from City Council. And the goal is to have a consent item, meaning that there is some decision made on the item on December the 3rd. So our goal is to have final determinations for all these proposals before the end of 2024. Okay, so before we close out, we will do a ranking survey. So I just want to clarify what we mean by eligible beneficiaries before we launch. So earlier in the meeting, you all gave your kind of free-form, open-ended comments on who should be eligible. And then you have the second option of if you thought more groups should be eligible, adding the secondary group. What we'll do now is launch 2 different polls, so please be sure to stay for both. This will help us rank that feedback. So we have some preliminary feedback, and this is going to help us establish what this group, which right now consists of 17 participants, what you all see as a priority group. So the first will be selecting up to 3 people who should benefit from potential scholarships or academic grants. And the second will be voting for ranking, up to 3 people who should be eligible for any kind of career development, internship, apprenticeship, pathway types of programs. So I will give y'all a few minutes. We have about 17 folks, so this may go quicker. If you have any issues with the poll, feel free to message us in the chat. Otherwise, we will go live with the first eligibility ranking poll to give your feedback on who should be eligible for scholarships and academic grants. We are waiting for responses for about 5 more people. I'll give you about 1 or 2 more minutes before we close the poll. So if you would like to vote, thank you. Okay, so it looks like that last person may not want to submit a response. So we're going to actually end the poll now and then share results so you all can see the feedback that was received. So you should now be able to see the poll results for the eligibility survey to rank feedback on who should be eligible for scholarships or academic grants. So you can see the respondents, and we had about 16 out of 17 attendees currently on the call who responded. 75% of those 16 respondents said former residents. 75% also said descendants. The next biggest grouping was families, so not necessarily direct descendants, but it could be folks like spouses, or grandchildren, so descendants of your descendants. Some might batch that as the same. That had about 44% of people, 7 respondents. And then 2 people said for all residents of Hayward, 2 people said low income, 2 people said no one, and 4 people, roughly 25%, or exactly 25% of respondents said business owners and renters. So hopefully you got a chance to scroll around. I will stop sharing that one so you all can prepare for the next survey. So again, this is the same type of survey, but the topic will be different. So this is the pathway programs, career trainings, on the job kind of training programs and access programs. So in just a moment, you'll see the poll go live and you can rank up to 3 options for who should be eligible for pathway or pipeline programs. Just a quick time check, 13 of the 17 attendees have responded. So we are at 82%. We'll give you about maybe 1.5 more minutes to respond. So feel free to get your answers in the next minute if you would like to rank this eligibility poll. Okay, so we're going to take a few more seconds before we close the poll. I know there's at least one person who needed some technical support, so you'll be hearing from Rachel in the chat. And if you're not able to send your responses, so that would be maybe up to 3 people, feel free to email us. We can put the email address in the chat as well. I want to leave the poll up for one more second just to go back to one question that came up around public comment. So currently, public comment is open for the first 4 proposals. So that's from both of these July town halls. That is open for 20 days. So public comment will close for those 4 proposals on Tuesday, September the 17th at midnight. So you still have a few weeks for that, about 2.5 weeks for those proposals. For tonight's town hall and for next week's town hall, the public comment will launch in about 3 to 4 weeks. If it's sooner, we'll notify all the people who signed up for alerts via email. Will also notify everyone who attended the town halls via email. So again, public comment is open for 4 of the 10 proposals, but not the last 6. Those will have different dates for when public comment closes. And maybe we can, in the chat, I'm going to turn the mic over to Regina. I'll put in the chat some notes and a link to the webpage where you can find the links to public comment surveys. But just for reference, there was an email that went out, I believe it was Monday afternoon, and that email should have information with links to all 4 of the town halls. You can also visit that Russell City Reparative Justice Project portal website. And the first update you'll see will have 4 hyperlinks to the various topics. I'm sorry, Regina, I misspoke. I forgot to share the responses. So let me share the results and then I'll close out. So we had 14 respondents, so about 82% for those remaining. Thank you so much for giving that feedback. You can scroll on your device to see that of those who responded, 79%, 11 people said the pipeline program should be for descendants. 71% said for residents, so Russell City residents, 71%. And the next biggest groups were family who are maybe not direct descendants, 5 out of 14, so 36% of people, as well as former property owners. So thank you so much for sharing that feedback. And I just want to close out by saying thank you all for your time. I really appreciate every person for being here. I know it's not a big or not a small lift to spend 2.5-ish hours with us on a Wednesday evening. So thank you for doing that in the mix of back to school season and everything else going on in your lives. And thank you also to our team, to Rachel, Louisa, Geraldine, Kim, Regina. Really appreciate your time. And with that, I'm going to turn the mic back over to our Assistant City Manager, Regina Youngblood.
Thank you, Josephine. Just echoing Josephine's comments of thanking everyone for coming out tonight and your active participation. Thank you to the team. And thank you, Josephine, for your leadership in this effort.
Excellent. Thank you all. You have a great night and we will see you next week.